You're very welcome along to the Keith Andrews Show, with you on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter every 12:30 Thursdays. You can also listen back on the podcast. Joining me this week is Mr. Ger Gilroy. Ger, this is your debut, I believe.
It is, yeah.
You've been pieing off all the invites, I believe.
No, it's the first time I've been asked.
Come on, buddy.
I have a 100% record. I'm showing up.
Really?
The one thing I always do is show up.
Show up, yeah. You give a little more than that, though. How's your week been?
Yeah, pretty good.
All right. I'm waiting with you on Tuesday, aren't they, on the AM?
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
You're up early.
I'm up early. I was up early this morning as well, but that's another story. Right, I want to kick off with Liverpool Roma the other night.
Yeah.
Astonishing. I've heard a lot of people moaning about the 2 goals that they've conceded, right? But it's Liverpool. It's Jurgen Klopp. I don't see really where they're coming from in terms of... Most teams would have shut up shop at 3-0.
Yeah.
So they keep going. He's being criticised for the substitution of Salah, and then they get the 2 goals again, looking after your best player.
He's carrying an injury. There's a bit of a groin.
Yeah, so he's monitoring it. He's being considerate. They are phenomenal in the way they play. If they add a bit of depth to it, they can challenge in terms of a Premier League title. They just haven't got the strength and depth. But they've shown in terms of one-off games against Man City, obviously over those 2 legs, again the other night.
Here's a philosophical question for you, right? Do you bother adding depth? Or do you decide, we're a Champions League team. Every year, we're going to be like one of the best.
4 in Champions League.
Yeah. It's like, we'll be happy enough. We're definitely going to finish in the top 4 because of the way things are at the moment. And the only reason I'm adding depth is actually, no, I'm going to add superstars. I'm only going to buy 1 superstar every year, and I'll manage the minutes. If it's 0-0 against whoever the new Stoke are, I'll be happy enough, and I'll go, yeah, okay, don't bust a nut this week, lads. Champions League next week. We're a team of big time Charlies.
Yeah, I think the hierarchy would probably be happy with that, because you're not demanding serious transfer funds.
Yeah.
And if you do bring in, because I've said since Coutinho left, obviously you'd worry when he left, and the main worry for me when he left was when teams drop off against Liverpool and they bank on the 18-yard box, who's the one that's going to unlock the door? Because the midfield haven't really got that. Lallana has, but obviously he's struggled. That front 3 needs space in behind, and Roma gave it to them in abundance the other night. But when he left, for me, after a few weeks of seeing that front 3 getting picked time and time again with a robust, energetic midfield 3 behind that, the balance of the team looked better.
Yeah.
So again, in the summer, if we're talking about reinforcement, you bring another big player into the equation, you're going to have to ruffle that front 3 up at times. Yeah. And it's devastating.
Or do you just rest them and say, here's the thing, you're going to have a really long career, you're going to play in all the big games, this guy's coming in, I'm not going to pick you every week, let's have a bit of peace, try and get the same relationship with everybody, so if somebody gets injured, we can still compete in the Champions League. There's probably a lot of people out there that might not have seen a lot of Roma, understandably, this year, right? The coach that came in, Eusebio Di Francesco, done a really good job at Sassuolo, got them into the Europa League, an unfancied team in Italy, gets this job, tactically very astute, normally. Yeah. Plays with a back 4, went with a back 3 against Barcelona in the second leg, first time he'd done it all season long. And he'd done it, we've got it up on screen, the formation from the other night. So we went with the back 3. The normal back 4 is Fazio and Manolos playing as a 2. Jesus comes in on the left-hand side of a 3. So it worked against Barcelona, but if you concentrate on that side of Jesus and Kolarov, we all know what Kolarov's like in terms of wants to get forward, wants to bomb. I was always intrigued going into this game in terms of where you're going to set that defensive line. So I've already mentioned about, against Liverpool, if you nullify the space in behind, you cause them a problem for me, because that's where Salah wants to go. Mane, even Firmino, even though he's better at dropping deep and getting it. Where do you engage? Their approach was so naive. I literally couldn't believe it. I couldn't legislate for a coach who I've actually thought this season, do you know what? You're going up in my estimation. He's that good in terms of the way he looks at it. So I couldn't believe what I was saying. Where did they engage and where should they have engaged?
They were just ragged. They were just pulled all over the pitch. That area between Jesus and Kolarov, that space, that you hear terminology, the grey area, where when you go to a back 3, centre halves don't really like going into full back areas or coming out into mid. It takes a certain type to be comfortable to do that. All over the place. I couldn't believe what I was seeing against players that want grass to run into. Salah, who they know so well. And he's gone up, God knows how many notches since last season when we played at them.
So you just play flat back four, sit deep and go, come on, show us what you got.
Yeah, I think for the first leg, I think you nullify it. In Rome, we've seen it against Barca and even against Shakhtar when they had to come from a goal in the last 16. You can grow into the game with the fans. It was like a throwback going back to that Barcelona game with the big, huge flags flying out. It was brilliant. So at Anfield, nullify it.
You said you watched the 4-1 where Barcelona did tear them apart, but actually it wasn't a fair reflection of the game either.
Away, the first two goals were own goals. De Rossi, who has been immense, was nowhere to be seen, because he was chasing shadows because Liverpool were that good, comes off. And Manolas another. So the first two goals were own goals. So it painted a false picture. Barcelona in the second leg froze. Like I'm talking, didn't do anything to try and rectify the situation. Goal behind, 2 goals behind. Messi, Suarez doing nothing off the ball, doing nothing for the team to try and help. Nothing.
And that's the difference in this. So in the second leg in Rome, that front three will make a nuisance of themselves and they'll run themselves ragged. Yeah. And so that gives Liverpool the sense that the 5-2 is not the disaster that some of the Liverpool fans might have felt like.
Far from a disaster. Obviously, everybody wants to say, and they come out and they chip away, oh, you shouldn't have conceded. Of course, Lovren made a mistake. Karius in the first half got away with that one. So there's still question marks, certain question marks. But I look at all these teams, Jay, like genuinely, even last night, Bayern, Real Madrid, Roma defensive, all of them defensively. We harp on about Liverpool's defensive issues. They've all got them.
Bayern didn't play well and could have had Real Madrid out of sight in the first half. And you feel like this is it. The stars have aligned and beautifully for Liverpool, but it's not that the final is going to be easier for them in a one-off game. But that weird scenario where you are 3 goals up and you can't really defend, so you've got to go and attack. It's not ideal.
No, it's not ideal, but
I mean, it is ideal. It is like absolutely taking a 3-goal lead to the second leg of a European semi-final is nearly ideal.
Yeah,
it's just that mentality-wise, you're like.
But I think they only have one mentality, so this is going to help them. This isn't like I was going to say United, but far from that, because he would go in and ruin the game. But in terms of teams that tweak the way they play from week to week, that they can sit deep, they can soak up, they can counter attack. I'm trying to think of a team. Man City don't do it either. They just play their game.
Yeah.
Liverpool just go and play. They're on the front foot. They take the game to the opposition. They high press. They're energetic. They're in the opposition face. And what they did the other night to Roma was what I've been saying about the English national team should be doing for years. They made a game, in terms of the tempo of it, unplayable for the opposition. So the Premier League, I think we'd all agree, is probably the quickest, fittest, most powerful league in the world.
That's its strength.
Yeah. So nearly everybody plays in the Premier League that plays for England. Why aren't they doing that in the English national team?
Yeah.
Now everybody will say, oh, it's the end of the season, they're tired, they're fatigued, we've no winter break.
Mid-season they don't do it either.
Exactly. So what they did tonight was they played the game at a level that Roma can't cope with. So when they win the ball back in their defensive third and they've been under the cosh for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, the ball's played into De Rossi in midfield or Kevin Strootman, bang. Bang, relentless pressure, everybody. And they just couldn't deal with it. And they did to Roma tonight what Roma did to Barcelona. Bullied them physically. You've even got De Rossi coming out afterwards moaning about, they played direct, they played long, they played in behind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they did, but very well.
Yeah. Is this an evolution in Klopp and in this style of play? Is this something that's a higher version of what was happening at Dortmund, an even better version?
Yeah, I think he's basically got it now. He's got it to a place at this club where he's probably wanted to get it from day one, but takes time, takes transfer windows, takes players buying into it, takes a certain level of player in terms of it. This would be really effective if you had, I mentioned the 3 midfield. Unless you had a front 3 with the qualities that they have, and especially Salah in terms of the season he's having, it wouldn't be as impressive, obviously, because the way he conjures goals for himself, phenomenal. Even his second goal, the first one's got all the headlines, but the way he breaks and the run for the second goal, where he spun Jesus around. Jesus was dizzy. He basically made a little run to the right. Jesus takes his eye off it, bang, inside. Just creates that 2-3 yards of space. And by then he's too quick and too concise and deliberate. He's just bang, gone, game over.
Even that 50-minute period where Liverpool were missing chances, and you could hear the crowd getting a little bit at them. There was a maturity about the team to be able to go, okay, this is the European semi-final, and we're missing chances. Yeah. That's kind of one of those things that only the super teams have, where there's a confidence even when you're making mistakes. It's like, well, that's fine.
Because they didn't start well. Roma actually started quite well, and I was surprised with, I mentioned about how high they pressed, how aggressive they were, taking the game to Liverpool. They had the best of the first 20-25 minutes without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Could have taken the lead with that one that went through Karius's hands.
Yeah, so is that the thing that makes Liverpool fans just a little bit worried, is that Roma will come out and play really well for that first half hour, and if that goes in next time, then suddenly, well, it's a very different game. It's 1-0 and it's actually...
That's Liverpool. That's Liverpool. They're not going to change under this manager. So we even mentioned before about the 3-0 up. Most managers will be taking two of the front players off, or a flair player, and solid up, or putting Clavon on even earlier.
Do you play them this weekend? Or is it like, oh, he's got a little niggle, it's fine, sit down, lads?
See, the thing with Salah is he's after records, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I would imagine these conversations are going on in the dressing room or in the training ground yesterday, today. Look, Gaffer, I'm fine, I'm going, because he wants to break records. He's on 43 goals.
It's insane.
He was so close to breaking Ian Rush's record in a single season. He's after golden boots. He's after Ballon d'Ors if he keeps this up.
He is really, isn't he?
Yeah, he genuinely is.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a competition that's been dominated by two players, in Messi and Ronaldo, for years, and nobody else. We talk about Hazard in that next bracket, Bale a couple of years ago, he's in that next bracket. Who can break into it? Who can the third person in those awards is always kind of coming along for the ride. It's always been between Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
If they win the Champions League, he has to get the Ballon d'Or.
I mean, even with the overhead bicycle kick that Ronaldo has, like it's hard, and the last minute penalty against, like, it's an amazing sequence of events for Ronaldo. But at the same time, he was grand last night. He didn't really impact the game, but that's who he is now. So
that's exactly where he is in his career. He needs to play as the 9, and he's not going to be as eye-catching in the main. He will score those type of goals that until the day he retires. But in terms of, he will still score lots of goals once he plays as the focal point, the 9, and they supply him. But in terms of the type of performances that we're seeing from Salah, out of this world.
How do you keep that trio together? You just double their wages in the summer and say, look, lads,
basically, and in particular Salah, nail it down.
Don't be talking to anybody.
Just nip it in the bud. There's going to be hype, isn't there? There's going to be paper talk. There's going to be inquiries from the big boys.
Already there is. So you can't guarantee they're all going to stay. It feels to me like the Salah relationship.
They will.
Firmino as well.
Yeah, I think Firmino definitely. I think there's something about Firmino and Liverpool that's just right. Character, just the way he plays.
I feel that way about Salah. I can't see Salah leaving. I just think that he's come here, he's absolutely found who he is and his identity, and is now the iconic inheritor of one of the greatest clubs in world football, and they'll definitely pay him. With Firmino, it's just a sense of and obviously coming from Egypt, Salah has had to live that life where you travel a lot, but Brazilian football is kind of, you stay 2 years, you go around, you get paid, you stay 2 years, you go around, you get paid. It's like
I just think I agree. I think I don't know, I just see the first day next season it's going to be those three. I just think, well, if they've sold 140 million. They've got Naby Keita coming in, which was done last year. They've spent a bit of Van Dijk money. There's going to be money to spend, obviously, in general.
You add another goalkeeper and another centre-back.
You add a number 1 goalkeeper, and you get let go of.
Well, then maybe you can start thinking about winning the league. I mean, winning the league is grand, right? The Premier League is grand, but winning the Champions League, that's the thing.
Yeah, but it's just, like we were speaking off camera about PSG, and you win the domestic title, grand, but there's just no guarantees, because Bayern, Juve, Real, Barca, they're all capable of producing. They've still got it in them. They're serial winners, all of them. They're still capable of knocking you out over a 2-legged affair.
Which is why winning that is, I think, and I would always have felt like, I think everybody always would have felt like the European Cup was by far the most important thing. But there was a period of time where the English clubs tried to re-establish, no, Premier League's far more important. But we just know it isn't. So, Would you rather be a City fan or a Liverpool fan if Liverpool win the Champions League? I know I'd much rather be a Liverpool fan by a mile, and it's not even close.
It's a toss of a coin, isn't it? And I have got sympathy for Pep in terms of the league, the way it's just kind of fizzled out. Yeah, because they have been the best team by a mile.
It doesn't. If it was more exciting, it might help. But
all right, I want to move on to Arsene Wenger and Arsenal, and obviously the end of an era. Like, again, sympathy. I've just spoke about Pep Guardiola in terms of the season. I look at Wenger and I kind of feel sympathy.
I do.
In certain ways, because up until 2 years ago, I just think what he's done for that football club, and now he's going to get the praise that he quite rightly deserves, because he's transformed that football club, the style of play, from the boring 1-0 type team. Yeah. He inherited obviously that back four, back five with Seaman. He just transformed them into a different generation, way before its time. Everybody, every player when I was playing there, manager, coach, would reference the way Arsenal played. They became everybody's second favourite team because of the style of play. And it's obviously in the last few years where it's tainted it a little bit.
The Arsenal way means something in a way that, like, it's nonsense when you talk about it for Chelsea or Spurs or West Ham. Like, I'm sorry, but that's all made up marketing stuff. It's a real thing when it comes to Arsenal. I have a little bit of sympathy with how it's being handled at the moment. There's, like, he comes out in a press conference and says, well, it wasn't my choosing of the timing, and then 5 hours later there's a press release issued where it sounds like corporate speak, but they've said that Arsene Wenger actually said, we came to an agreement about when the correct time to announce this would be, and of course the club made the right decision. I fully support them. It's like,
look, I think he was pushed. He was basically given the ultimatum, given the 2-year deal last year just to not create that uncertainty by giving him a 1-year contract.
And I think to give him a reward. I think everybody knew that was really a 1-year contract, and at the end of that we're going to give you the payment for the second year. That's our, like, bonus to you. It's probably tax-free because there's some kind of way around that, and everybody's happy. He goes off with a 11-12 million quid extra and picks up a job straight away. I don't know what the right thing to happen now is.
Who gets it? Because the Luis Enrique is the favourite. You've got Jogi Löw. You've got Mikel Arteta, who I think is a very intriguing one. I was surprised. I just printed this off about an hour ago. And the usual names were on it: Allegri, Brendan Rodgers, Vieira, Henry, Ancelotti, Thomas Tuchel, but we think he's probably going to go to PSG. Diego Simeone, who he faces tonight against Atletico Madrid. I like the sound of Arteta.
I think Arteta has a really good chance. And the reason I think that is because Stan Kroenke, who owns the club, also owns what used to be the St. Louis Rams, but are now the LA Rams. There was a big kind of transition for them. They got this hotshot 31-year-old coach, Sean McVay. They took him from the Washington team where he was the offensive coordinator. A genius, an absolute genius at 31 years of age. And he had a brilliant first season where they won the divisional title and reached the playoffs. But then they've doubled down and they've signed 5 or 6 world-class players who are all on massive amounts of money. So it feels to me like Kroenke in St. Louis was Kroenke just cashing, building up the cash. Then he flips them over to LA and now it's showtime. And it feels to me like it's showtime with the Arsenal job if they get the right person. And I know they've said that, we're only going to have 40 or 50 million to spend. I don't think that's the case. I think that they're about to spend and invest, and they're ready to fill that stadium week in, week out and make money, because, like, it's possible to make a load of money.
It's some opportunity for a manager, because expectations levels now have taken a dip 2 years in a row now, not in the Champions League. You look at some of those names, I think it's a bit of a merry-go-round. I look at someone like Arteta, Ralf Rangnick at RB Leipzig, has a very good reputation. Brendan Rodgers, in terms of the style of play, I could see it.
Yeah.
In terms of the character, I'm not so sure. Simeone, no chance.
I think Simeone is for me, if I was deciding what I wanted, I would give Simeone a blank check and I would say, we'd like to play some good football, but equally, most importantly, we want to win, and we want backbone, and we want spine. We want the George Graham spine.
Do you think the hierarchy could deal with Simeone?
Yeah, I think that I think that Simeone is probably less volcanic in the boardroom than he is on
touchline.
I think that, like, he's a clever guy at this stage, and his legacy for what he's done at Atletico, that he's always going to be considered an absolutely amazing manager. But if you go and you turn a club like Arsenal into a team that's capable of winning the Champions League, which wouldn't take that much money and that much investment really, then I think you go down as one of the great managers of all time. You put those two works together. And I think that kind of thing would appeal to him. Plus, it's not a million miles away from when people forget a little bit that when Vieira and Petit arrived, that was a hard team. They kicked you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there was a lot of violence in those
He went
games.
so far against that in terms of his recruitment. The likes of Arsene, and he basically bought number 10s. He got a crush on number 10s. Yeah, and Arteta, yeah. Although Arteta could have a little bit. He didn't like being kicked.
He'd punch you back, but
in a nasty way, in a sly type of way.
No kicks.
But he's clearly a student in the game, and I think he clearly read the script at Arsenal the way he left, because everybody assumed he would go onto the coaching side, pressed eject, got a nice little gig up here in Manchester City, learning off one of the best managers around. Very, and I'm sure that appeals to the hierarchy. I'd like to see them going for something a little bit different.
Yeah. If
Not
they
just
get
a merry-go-round.
If they get Carlo Ancelotti, I'm out. I'm like, I hope you finish 12th.
Yeah, well, nothing's going to change.
You know,
it's probably going to be the exact same.
Ancelotti's going to come in and go, "Oh, Mesut, you're my favourite. You're amazing."
Yeah.
But like, no, he's not. Get rid of him.
Don't worry about working off the ball, Mesut Ozil. We don't need to do that.
Yeah,
we don't need to do that. But it'll be interesting to see who they do get. Right, I want to move on. Last week, I was very, very privileged. Myself and Joseph went over to Burnley. Unbelievable.
Tell us a bit about
access. Well, we made the call a few weeks before. They were very good in terms of letting us in. Came back with a couple of dates, right? They came back on a Wednesday. I knew they were playing on the Sunday because I was covering that game against Stoke. It totally missed me until a few days before that they're actually playing on the Thursday night. So we got access the day before a game. So once I knew there was a game the next day, I thought, this is going to be tough. This is going to be hard work. The day before a game, in terms of the intensity, the focus around the football club, there's always a different feel than 4 or 5 days before, where it's a little bit more relaxed.
We've just had one. We're coming.
You're kind of recovering, or you're getting back up to speed, or the day before a game, you're focusing on tactics. You're focusing on set pieces. There's
getting selected
team meetings. Yeah, I think he brought them in the Thursday of the next morning. Done a little run through at the training ground in terms of set pieces. So the access we got was frightening. Everybody, and I mean everybody, was so hospitable. The way they let us just crack on.
Why?
I think that's the way he's made the football club. I think that's the atmosphere that he's generated. He's been there 5.5 years. Not very easy to do.
Well, do you think he's obviously under pressure at various stages, and also has the general pressure of being a Premier League manager, but he must feel like it's beneficial to everybody to have this type of atmosphere where, now obviously they have respect for you as a professional. Like, they acknowledge that you're not one of us chumps who's coming in trying to, ooh, what's going on over there? Like, you're actually there to talk and absorb and listen and share things with them. But at the same time, he must feel like it's beneficial to them to be open. Like, that spirit is actually helpful to them as a team. It manifests itself on the pitch. Approachable.
I think they're liking the fact now that they're getting some plaudits. They're getting recognition of the work that they've done, the way they're building the football club, him in particular, in terms of the training ground, which we were fortunate to get access to, state of the art.
Yeah.
A stark contrast to Turf Moor, has to be said, in terms of that is going to need a transformation if they keep in the Premier League for the coming years.
But even that was interesting. Like, you were saying off air that they invested in that when they went down the last time.
So the first promotion, it was a case of, okay, we need to balance the books. Obviously, we've got whatever this pot of money is going to be. Sean, you can have X amount on players, budget for that. Wages obviously get increased there as we go. What can we do for this football club that's going to, we've got promoted, this is always going to be here. You build a training ground. Your training ground is where it's all at. You're only at the stadium once every 2 weeks on average.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they will address that in time to come, but the training ground is where it's at, day in, day out. It was so impressive.
Did you tell me the trick that Wolves pulled when, was it you, that, they brought me to the pitch when I was signing for them?
I've had that a couple of times, yeah.
It's like, and then you go to the training ground, it's like, what is this? Third world.
Yeah, and I've had the opposite as well. I've had at MK Dons where they brought me to the stadium. It was like, wow, this place is unbelievable. Done all the business there. Turned the first day of training, it was literally like a park.
Yeah.
I was like, you've done me there. You've done me there. So I always see both. But genuinely, Sean Dyche, so much respect for what he's done there anyway. Played against his teams, coached against his teams. Very, very impressive. Tough to play against. And we'll have a little look now and see how we get on. So we're here at Turf Moor, the home of Burnley Football Club. What an amazing season they have been on. 7th in the Premier League. European football looks very, very likely. Where they are right now, just a few points away. Sean Dyche, the journey that he's brought this football club on in the 5.5 years really, really shouldn't be underestimated. 2 promotions, a relegation, stayed up last year. The recruitment over the years has got better and better. This football club, who has rich history in terms of going back 50 years, the last time they played in Europe, but in the modern era, to be 7th in the Premier League, the chance to finish 6th, really is a fairy tale. Sean, firstly, thank you very sincerely much for letting us in behind the scenes. A superb day. From the moment I've walked in that gate, I've just been speaking to you about it, I can't believe the atmosphere around a club that is sitting 17th in the club, how welcoming, how hospitable it is. That must make you very proud.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a pleasure to have you. Yeah, the fact is that, beyond the result, we believe that the players have a certain level of professional conduct, and I think that's important. Some of the old school traits that we were brought up with, by the way, you've got to be willing to work hard here, but you've got to have manners, you've got to have respect, you've got to have a bit of honesty about the way you conduct yourself.
When you're going into a game against maybe some of the bigger teams, which your record has obviously been good this year, it was one of my big bugbears as a player with certain managers that there was an obsession with the opposition, and it made me feel, we can't win this. My manager doesn't even believe that I can win this. But certainly this season, the way you've approached those big games with the different types of styles, you obviously approach it in a very different way.
Yeah, I always think as a player, some of the work that we do, I reflect on my time as a player. We process the information as a staff, because I don't think I've got every answer. My staff are important. And I always thought that you need a balanced view. I think as a player, you want information so that you're aware, but you want to know what you're capable of. And I think we stick to a lot of what we do, because we almost want to make the game in a positive way about them being uncomfortable with how we play, rather than us sacrificing how we play towards the opposition. And we've done that pretty well. We made it awkward for teams when they felt, strange. The best example probably this year, because they're the top side and deservedly won the league, is Man City, particularly at our place. In the last 7 or 8 minutes of a game, we had them actually kicking it long. We had their keeper kicking it long, because we'd found a way of making it awkward for them. So I must make it clear, not remotely did we take them on at their game, because their game is true football and they're very good at it, but we made it awkward and they couldn't quite really grip the game, and we ended up getting a nice 1-1. Now, obviously, it's not that easy, and there's a risk element to it, because on a day when it doesn't work, you can get badly hurt against them sides. But more often than not, we found a way of making the game come in our favour a little bit, and therefore you've got a better chance of getting something from it. So we do make them aware of the opposition, but we do focus on, remind the team and focus on what we're going to do to try and affect the game.
It's difficult. It's obviously enjoyable to play against these players, but you've always got your work cut out. And I think, like Jeff said, looking at the wide men at Man City have obviously been outstanding this season. But there's times when you play against Man City, it's a strange feeling, because you actually, at times in the game, there's no one to mark, and you think, well, I'm in my position, but there's no one around. It's just a constant movement and popping up in different areas, dropping in between where midfielders can't really, sit on them and we can't come in. So I think every week you face these challenges. Obviously, you play against teams now that play wing backs, and that's another challenge, because you tend to have a wide man up top who's coming inside, and you're also aware that the wing back's trying to get forward. So I think what we've done well this year is against these teams and these types of players, we've tried to, make sure our performance in our game causes them problems as well. And
they're key core values that I think are really, really important. They're important as a professional, and I know people find it hard to imagine the link of why that can help you win a game, but it's a real team aspect. It's a group of people who, once they have a core value to them, then they can bond and they can grow together and they stand for something. And I call it the base to work from. Of course, on top of that, you've got to have tactics, you've got to have an understanding, you've got to have technical ability, you've got to be fit and well. We know that. But that kind of social and mental side of the game, I think it's forever important and possibly overlooked by some, but we definitely don't overlook it.
You've been here 5.5 years, double promotion, back down. Tell us a little bit, as we're sat here in a state-of-the-art training facility, tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, so 5.5 years ago, I'll give you a quick sort of whistle stop to bring you up to date. 5.5 years ago, I had someone else's side originally. We managed to start the process of the culture and the environment of what was here, but knowing you got to win games. I had a real tough beginning. We eventually finished 11th. It was a strange season. But the next summer, despite having no money, we sold Charlie Austin. And I reference that because that was a really important moment where the kind of the belief in the club was a bit misaligned. The fans thought, why aren't we in the Premier League? But the club was actually cutting everything because it needed to. It needed to come back to a business level. So when we sold Charlie Austin, the reason why that was so pivotal is I think the fan base calmed down in a sense. They went, hang on a minute, we've just sold one of our main players and our main scorer. Then strangely, as that often happens, because of the history of Burnley, it's had a few knocks down its time, and the people gathered together again and they actually go, do you know what, we need to get behind the team. That pre-season was the emergence of Sam Vokes, emergence of Danny Ings, Kieran Trippier, Jason Shackle played up with skin, Michael Duff, Dean Marney. All these people beginning to play at the top of their kind of game. Tom Heaton, of course, we signed, Ben Mee. I could go on and on of virtually every player. The point I'm trying to make, that really started building this kind of culture and environment that's still here today. Then we had a real go at the Premier League, found that tough, but as you rightly mentioned, rather than put everything on the pitch, we started building all of this and the training ground, as you've seen some of it today. Came down out of that, 23 unbeaten to win the title, which you covered a few games that season. We'd done terrific, the emergence in a different way. Joey Barton, Andre Gray, two main characters amongst many good performers that season, Michael Keane, etc., etc. And then Premier League last season, and then it was the obvious challenge: can you stay in the Premier League? Which we did with a couple of games to go. And then this season, can you then build on that? Which we managed to do again. So, to some, please, is an understatement because both on and off the pitch of the club, yeah, exactly, they've grown, but also in really, really good shape. I mean, top shape on and off the pitch, and I'm very, very proud of that. Beyond results, that's something that will be hopefully here for a long, long time if my day comes to not be here.
You've been at the club a long time, 2010. So you've seen a lot at this club. I could not get over this training ground when I drove in this morning. Tell us a little bit about the journey of this club.
Yeah, obviously I've said to you off camera, when I first arrived, we used to get changed at the stadium and drive over and go up to one of the pitches in a muddy pitch and back into your car and back to the training ground again. And then eventually we moved into a small porter cabin away from this training ground, which is a little bit better, and we were all buzzing with that. But since the gaffer's come in now, he's created a new training ground. I think they spent about 10 million on the training ground. There's 5 or 6 different pitches and it's unbelievable.
Bumped into a familiar face. Joey, what are you doing here today?
I pop in occasionally just to check on the lads, make sure they're going along, keep the quality control here, make sure they're training properly, so on and so forth. No, just come in, just catch up with everybody, obviously beyond football. Some great friends in there, and obviously we've shared some good experiences. I mean, you look at the legacy, the gaffer's going to leave here, new training ground. Obviously, team on the verge of getting into European competition for the first time in a long time. And the feel-good factor, you feel it. Burnley's 90,000 people in the town. Premier League club in the, probably winning their league table by finishing 7th. It's probably as high as Burnley can finish based on their output at this moment. And the place is just alive. You see the way he conducts himself on a daily basis, the way the lads have respect for the environment. People like me, I don't go back into many football clubs that I've played at. But I enjoy coming back in here because it's beyond. He has a relationship beyond football because he genuinely cares about his players and the players that come in and do well for him. He's always helping them out. But, the amount of times I pick up the phone and speak to him about all manner of things, which I don't really do with anyone else, such as my respect towards him, and he's always, prepared to pick up the phone.
So Turf Moor, in my playing career, never ever an easy place to play and come and play and dictate the way you want to play football. Add Sean Dyche into that equation and it becomes even more difficult. I've been here as a player and a coach, and I'm looking around the dressing room, I'm not quite sure the players realise the first time they come to this football club exactly what they're going to face. Ferocious in terms of the way Burnley approach a game. This has given us a false picture really of Burnley. This is it at its absolute best. The pitch, immaculate, conditions absolutely beautiful, but in the main this is a very, very tough place to come. I always feared going with certain teams to certain styles of play, and as a basic, playing against your teams, you've got to match the endeavour. Now that must be something that gives you immense pride in terms of your team more often than not replicates you. I think they rarely let you down certainly in terms of endeavour.
No, that's right. And going back to the beginning of the story, 5.5 years ago, in my first press conference, the only thing I ever said that I'd guarantee is sweat on the shirt. I said, I can't tell you we're going to play amazing football under my watch, can't tell you we're going to win every game, but I can guarantee you we'll have players who go out there and give everything for the cause. And I've been very pleased with that, because I think when I played, I was limited, but I gave everything. The minimum requirement for me was maximum effort. And that's exactly what I've instilled into the players, and they've ran with it. It's them who take ownership. I can only guide them to what I think's right. They deserve immense credit because they've gripped hold of it, and now it's part of the fabric of what we do. A team that will give everything, a team that will play for 97, 98, 99 minutes, whatever the referee plays, will keep going and be relentless in their attitude to get a result. And I think, when you add in the layers on top of that, as we mentioned, or as I mentioned, the tactics, the technical side of the game, their understanding, etc., etc. But if that's your worst that can happen, is a team that give everything, well, that's not a bad position to be in. And we've had that year on year on year, and it's carried us a long way.
Go back to last season, 16th, 40 points, good solid season, back in the Premier League, stay up. You were third favourites for relegation. You lose Andre Gray, you lose Michael Keane, you 8 million net spend. What realistically were the expectations? It can't have been what you've achieved.
Oh, no. I'm always honest in calling that one. I felt in pre-season the squad was coming together. I thought it had improved. I thought we'd lost good players, as you rightly said, but don't forget we'd done that year on year. We'd lost good players because this is a club that still want to balance the finances. And I felt pre-season, and my staff felt as well. And I think the team felt, if they're honest, that we had a deeper group with more quality. And I think you sensed that we were stronger. You never know until you get out there playing, you know that. And then we started getting points on the board early in some big games, and then we started progressing as a side. Then we had a bit of a wobble after Christmas, a few fine margins within that, and then we've come out of that with 5 big wins. But you're right, to think that we could move on from last season, I thought, yes, we can. But to get to where we've got to, no, this is beyond where I thought we could go in its initial spell. Whilst the balance of that is always being open-minded, because we wouldn't have achieved what we've achieved without an open mind. The first season we got promoted, as you said, you played against us, we worked with 17 players and had 2 centre forwards in the building until the end of January when we got Barnsley in. Almost improbable, at least, that you were going to carry that squad and get promoted, and yet we did. So that open-mindedness and the hard work has become a good mixture for us, so we continue to work in that manner.
It's as straightforward as the fitness coach can put on the best session, or the coach can put on the best session, but then it's all about your attitude, whether you actually want to do the right thing. So it's explained to you here what the right thing is. Obviously everything's monitored, and the difference between a good environment and a bad environment is you do a running drill to get a bit of fitness because you haven't played, and you do it at 90% in a shit environment, and you do it in this environment at 98% because you know that if you need to go in the first team, that's what's required. And also that's what everyone else is doing. So if you don't do it, then you just look like an absolute nugget. And most people want to fit in with the group, and when the group's as powerful as this group, you want to fit in, you don't want to be. You do get I've seen them, there's been a few here, but they're gone quickly because he's just like, okay, you don't want to buy into it, you're not for us, let's help you on your way. And to be honest, the good thing about him is even if he doesn't quite get a player, he doesn't like punish them. So he's like, okay, you're not for us, let's find a way of getting you out of here because you don't want to buy into what we're about. I mean, I sat in his kitchen with him and he was like, this is what we're about, do you want to buy into it? And I'd been craving
something like that,
this environment, so that's why I thrived here. And you see other people coming in, the likes of Aaron Lennon, illustrious career, played for some great clubs, England international. People, obviously had a couple of issues, I think, and people thinking that's the end of him. Comes in here, buys into it. He's been the best player in some of the games I've seen and gets a new lease of life, and probably plays European football next season.
Crazy.
Burnley,
European football.
Yeah, and they deserve it. Do you know what I mean? And you think Leicester won the league. You know what I mean? On the back of what? Great lads, great togetherness. I mean, everyone's looking for this magic
formula,
and it's work hard, be fit, be together, play for the team. Takes you a long way in our game, mate.
How hard is your recruitment with the financial restraints and the way that this group works in terms of, I would imagine character is a key component when you're looking at your new players, and you're a bit wary, I think, of the loan market. Is it one player in Kudu's coming?
Yeah, well, I think well, first of all, we need to imagine that our financial constraints, as you rightly call them in many ways, but only in the Premier League. You've got to remember, for Burnley Football Club to be spending £15 million on a centre forward,
it's substantial.
Exactly, but in the Premier League, believe it, well, anyway, that's really low. And don't forget that while we're doing that, we're getting 18 million in for the outgoing player. So, you look at that, you look at Keno going for sort of 23, 24, then you got Taki coming in for 4, or he'd come in previously for 4. I'm really, really pleased with that side of things. But it is difficult, it's how do you continue to make sense of that and make it work? But back to your point, it's still a lot of money for Burnley Football Club. So I'm not crying it in that we're not spending, because we are, but we just can't quite, like every time we catch up with ourselves, the market goes north again. So it's just that the market keeps moving. But I don't think you can cry it in. I think we've got a side that continues to develop. I think we've got a group of players who continue to improve. The recruitment side is always difficult for us. A lot of talk about why we haven't signed foreign players. It's absolutely nothing to do with being foreign. It's just the fact that our recruitment system is still not deep enough to find all of the details that we need to know about players. With the Irish lads, as you know, and with the British players and the English players that we've got, we can find a lot about them. The anomaly being Stephen Defoe. We signed Stephen in 46 caps for Belgium. He's not exactly a player who's not capable.
He's had injury troubles, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And we had to get him at speed, Premier League speed, that is, fitness, mentally and physically fit. And he was having a fantastic campaign until he got injured. So, yeah, it's more about the recruitment is difficult for the numbers, even at the numbers we're talking about. And then on top of that, how deep can our recruitment go outside of these shores? And that's a big challenge for us and something that we continue to try and progress with.
I've seen you very closely over the last couple of years in particular. We've been well aware, obviously playing against, coaching it, but in the last couple of years looking at your games in depth. This year in particular, maybe with the start that you had, I've seen a real evolution of style. Like I'm seeing a Burnley team that is still not getting the plaudits it deserves in terms of the ways you're playing. At times you've been criticised for playing direct, playing basic football, which is underestimated in my opinion. But the way the team has developed this year in particular, I genuinely think it's been magnificent.
No, I appreciate that, and I agree. I'm bound to say it, but I do agree. I think I'm a pretty honest fella, and last season we had to play hard, fast football because our goal, don't forget, was purely stay in the Premier League, and we had to do what we had to do. This year we felt we had a stronger group of players, so not necessarily all individuals, so we lost some good players, but a bigger depth of the group. I felt in training that allowed us to work on different styles. It's hard now because everyone judges you very, very quickly. And I'm not too worried about what the outside thinks, because I know what my players think. You saw us train today. There's a loads of football for one. We play endless football, but the players buy into it. You saw the tempo of training today. We're getting towards the end of the season, yet the tempo's high. Yeah, the demand's high, and I think that's shown in performances. And as you rightly said, we've mixed our style better, more possession based when we've needed to be, more counter-attack style when we needed to be away from home, because that can often be effective in the Premier League particularly. And I actually believe in that mixture. I actually am one of the rare people. I actually don't want to play like Barcelona. I want to play mixed football. I want to play football that can win football matches in any way. If you have to grind out, you can grind out. But if you can pass your way out of it and score great goals, then fantastic. But I want a team that can win in any style it needs to win. And we're getting there. We're not the real deal, by the way, but we are improving, I believe.
It's like in certain games, teams will sit off us, and we're fine keeping the ball now. Maybe a bit last year near the start of even when I was here, we would get the ball forward a little bit more. Now we've got a lot of players who are calm, relaxed, and they don't mind keeping it. And then if teams come and press us and there's space in between the lines or in behind, we won't turn that down, that opportunity either. So we've got a few different ways of playing, and we've got a lot of smart players who can cop on to what teams are trying to do against us.
Europa League next year, very much possible. 7 points from 7 games needed. clarets in Europe. Like it's madness to think of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Where it's a distinct
no, you're right. I
possibility.
mean, I was just saying in the press this afternoon that, and don't get me wrong, the media often not so much what you're doing now, but you know, the written media, they like a spin on things, and the Europa League has its question marks because of the amount of games, etc., etc. But you've just asked me about the timeline from when I got here 5.5 years ago, and the team was 16th in the Championship and cutting everything. Well, now we're talking about possible Europa League. Well, how can that be? I can't see a negative. I can't see it. I'm just going, well, okay, you get a heavy game schedule. All right, well, is that not the Championship? We've been through that twice. You know, do you want them games in Europe? What, as a badge of honour for Burnley Football Club playing in football in Europe? How would you not want that? You know, so it's kind of, now the challenge is right there. We know that. The challenge of getting in, first of all, and then if you're in there, when you're in there, whichever way you look at it, then you've got the challenge of more games. But what I'm saying is, let's take it on. You know, if that comes our way, then be open-minded about taking it on. And there'll be enough negatives thrown at you. So we tend to concentrate on what we do and be, you know, respectful of outside noise, but we tend to believe in what we're doing in here. So first of all, see if we can get there, and then we'll be open-minded for what comes next.
Well, some of the positives that have been thrown at you this year have been links with other clubs. You've been talked about in terms of manager of the year, and I don't want to embarrass you by letting you talk about that.
Sorry, bring it on. You won't embarrass me.
Who would be your manager of the year?
See, I'm slightly different because my awareness of all of the divisions, in the sense I played in all of them apart from the Premier League, but I played through the other three. I think John Coleman down the road at Accrington's done an amazing job. I think Neil Harris has done an amazing job anyway. But if they get there to the playoffs and then if they win it, well, that's out of this world. Yeah, that's out of this world. Pep, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Pep has done a fantastic job. I like the fact, and I don't know him, but from the outside looking in, I think he learnt a lot from last season. I think rightly so, a club like Man City kept that manager, because in other countries, and even in this country, if you're 15 points off the title, you could have been outed.
Yeah. Now,
that would have been ridiculous, but it happens. And I think it seems to me from the outside looking at it, he's learned about his team. He's gone back to a similar format that he had at Barcelona, about 10 years ago. Very much 4-3-3 orientated, fewer changes, reliant on the hardcore of top players, and then still changing when needs be, playing some great football, gluing it all together they've got a will and demand. There's a respect there, a teamship, if you like, that counts. And of course, some fantastic football. So he is the obvious candidate, make no mistake. But behind that, I do marvel at managers who are making a lot out of a situation when they haven't always got that much. And John and Neil Harris, and amongst many others out there doing good work. But them three guys, I personally think, for many different reasons, had fantastic seasons.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Just finally, I'm not trying to drag you away from Burnley anytime in the near future, but down the line, international management at any stage?
I don't know. I mean,
you'd be welcome in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, I've got half a team. I'm collecting.
Exactly,
I'm collecting. No, I mean, I look at it that, I think Gareth, I back Gareth 100%. I like him as a bloke, but I think he'll do well. And I like he's trying to look beyond tournaments, saying, hang on a minute, we need to build year on year. Yeah. And I quite like that. It's brave. I think, you get his question marks, but he's looking for these young players to now mature and become the next big players. And it's seemingly, I think the FA seem to be backing him with that, which I like. For me, as much experience as you can. You need as much experience. I'm learning all the time. I've had a lot of experience in a short window, really, with all that's gone on. Sacked, promoted, relegated, re-promoted, stayed in the Premier League, possibly going into Europe, who knows. That's a lot to happen, in a certain number of years. I just think that the more experience you get, the better chance you've got of being successful, whatever you do. If it's with Burnley, fantastic. If it's not, for whatever reason, we know the game changes, or in the future, if it's international football, whatever it may be. But my main thing is to continue progressing. I like the team to progress, but I have to be aware of my own development as well. And I think I am learning all the time. So that's my main thought at the moment, just to continue enjoying it, continue with the challenges and keep learning.
Genuinely, thank you much for having us.
Pleasure.
I look forward to seeing you.
Well, that was the nuts and bolts of it. What a guy.
Yeah, you're impressed, weren't you?
What a guy. Like, we were just chatting there, where could he actually end up? And a lot would have to break his way to get one of the super club big jobs, but it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that they have a really good run in Europe next season, and one of the other big clubs goes, well, you can manage in Europe. Look at him talking about culture, look at him understanding how to carefully manage resources. Look at how well his team plays when he has a little bit of time to work with them and they're a bit more confident on the ball. I don't know.
They've got better players in this year. He alluded to it in that as well, in terms of the strength of the group this year. With the start they got away to Chelsea, they got that draw at Wembley with Spurs, went and drew at Anfield as well. The belief has gone from that. He has evolved it, there's no doubt about it, and I think he's more than capable of that. And I just think we're stuck in an era at the moment where it's all about philosophies, styles, ethoses, whatever terminology you want to use on it. And what he talks about is mixed football.
Yeah.
He wants to win.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it's all about at that level. We're not at development stage here, we're developing kids into future players or whatever. This is about winning with the hand you've been dealt with. What way do you play that hand? We've seen him, I think, earlier in his reign, very direct. I've seen a lot of them this year. They play really good football.
Because he had a bit of money to spend on players who, as I think Jeff Hendrick said, now we feel confident enough, teams will drop off us and we'll keep the ball because that's okay. We've worked on it in training. It's just the way he talks. There's no bullshit about it.
No nonsense, is there?
And it's like, but it is clearly...
Quite refreshing that though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also, I have thought about like quite a lot. My management style is going to be like this, and we were talking about beforehand the atmosphere and the club. Like, he clearly feels like we have to stand for something. We're supposed to mean something. We have a brand, and you would never have said that about any of those smaller clubs that were yo-yo clubs for like the last. Which of them stand out for any particular reason? Leicester, only because they won the league,
Premier League,
that one weird season. But other than that, like, is there anything that really separates any of these clubs? I didn't know who owned Burnley. You know, this isn't one of those situations where it's a vanity project. They're building something great. So part of me wants them to stay there for 10 years and see, like, they get into Europe once every 3 years and they have a crack at it, and then they...
Well, what draws us to Burnley is obviously the Irish contingent there, and it's everybody's second favourite club in England now, isn't it? The fact that we've got so many Irish internationals there. He was saying, even joking around, he's collecting Irish players, isn't he? But when you hear him speak and you start to tap into what he's about, you can't but like him. You can't but like the way the football club are going about their business.
No, totally. You like that. He's got that very rare quality of being able to win you over very quickly by just being himself. Like most football managers, you're like, oh, you know,
not quite sure.
Are you just here for the next 6 months to cash in, or do you actually believe any of the stuff that you're saying about looking after your players and having their welfare at mind? But him, I'm buying.
Well, we spoke about the Irish players. He's got quite a few there. Two of the players that we did catch up with last week were Stephen Ward and Jeff Hendrick. I spoke to them about the World Cup disappointment. Moving on to Ireland, it's 5 months now since the exit against Denmark. How does that sit with you now? Is there still... I remember going back to the Henry handball when we missed out in 2010. Couldn't watch the World Cup, wasn't interested in the World Cup. It sat that badly with me. How is it now, 5 months on? Is it softened a little bit, or is there still anger, disappointment?
I think there's a tint of everything, really. I suppose anything that could have gone wrong in the game for us went wrong, and we done so well to get a point away from home. I thought, you just think everything's, you know, you're hoping everything goes in your favour, and for whatever reason it didn't. And yeah, listen, we're bitterly disappointed. We had a really good campaign, and to end as it did, you know, it's obviously really tough to take. But you know, there's one thing with, as you know, with Irish lads and the squad, you know, we're still, you know, very proud to represent our country, and we'll do everything we can in the next campaign to make it right.
Remember after that campaign we had, and we went towards 2012, there seemed to be a kind of, I don't know what it was, but it brought us closer together because from the disappointment. You sense that? I know you've only been together once for that Turkey game, but a little bit of a transitional period coming up, and the opportunity in the summer, a few friendlies. Do you feel like it's going to make you stronger as a group?
I think it can, because the players who are there in that qualifying group, and especially in the 2 games against Denmark, hopefully that anger and disappointment can, you know, spur them on and make us hungry to qualify. And then you have any new lad who comes in will be hungry to make an impression on the squad and get into the starting team. So it could be a good mix together. I know it'll take a couple of games to get everyone to gel a bit. So it is exciting times with some new faces coming in. I don't think we've had that for a few years, so it'll be good to see how we get on.
I then spoke to the lads a little bit about their different paths to Premier League football. Very different. Jeff, obviously, a more traditional apprenticeship at Derby County, and obviously Stephen Ward gone from League of Ireland. Let's hear what they had to say about that. You both have very different paths in terms of your careers. You've had a traditional apprenticeship at Derby, whereas you've gone League of Ireland route, Bows to Wolves. I constantly say to young lads that there's no set formula. I think your career is like a game of snakes and ladders. Would either of you change anything about the route that you went?
I wouldn't know. I think obviously it might be different for Jeff. He was probably in a different position than I was when I was his age. He was, probably the top, in the top two players in the whole country. Probably him and Robbie vying for that. Him and Robbie vying for it. They tell me in the car all the time he was better. But no, for me, I think, listen, I went away on trial and the usual, but for me, I think staying at home and learning my education at Bows was massive for me, because I don't know how I would have reacted coming to sort of an academy, trying to go on loan, being away from home, trying to go on loan. And when I signed for Wolves, I played men's football. I felt mature enough to go over there and deal with everything that the championship and sort of the exposure gave to you. So for me, it was definitely the right path. But as you say, it's different for everyone, and I think if you make it to where you want to go, whatever part you've been on is going to be the best one for you.
What about you, Joe?
I'm going to say the same. I wouldn't change anything. It got to a stage where I'd been on enough trials and away enough times where, don't get me wrong, I sometimes hated going on trials, being away for 4, 5, 6 days. But when it came to the stage, I'd sat down and signed with Derby, and I was just looking forward to getting away that much that I didn't even get homesick at the start. Nothing at all. My parents would give out to me at times for not calling or texting enough. I was just looking forward to getting away in with the lads, getting to know them and training every day, and I was loving it. I was lucky as well. There was 5 of us the same age from Ireland, so that definitely helped me settle in. But just getting in training, I got a lot fitter at times, from the age of 13 to 16 or whatever. I wasn't the fittest of players, but that gave me a different side to my game. I was able to go box to box. I was learning that, and I had a good coach at the time, and I felt like I really improved very quickly in my first few years, and I could see the differences, and I loved it. Within about 8-9 months, I got to train with the first team a few times, so I got to see how the professionals were doing it, and then that made me even more hungry.
Nice to sit down with the lads. It was 2 really different routes to get to where you need to get to in Premier League football. And again, you get asked all the time by young players or parents, what should you do? And especially now with the new national leagues that are in place, where there is better options now than when I was that age. But it just shows you the different ways they get there. It
doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't matter, because both of them have had really good careers. Stephen Ward obviously came over a little bit more mature to England, probably felt more ready for it. I think it very much depends on the individual, because Jeff mentioned he wasn't homesick.
Yeah,
and he went over 5 lads. I was homesick, and he was saying about he never rang home. I wouldn't ring home to let them know that I was homesick, because you're trying to hide that, and obviously it was a lot more difficult then. There was no computers and FaceTime and all that type of stuff.
Much harder to hide the fact you're bawling, sobbing, crying.
Exactly.
Is that tears? No, I've been chopping onions.
Well, his apprenticeship was very impressive in terms of, and I said this to him off camera as well, in terms of he had Nigel Clough as his first manager. I believe he gave him his debut, I'm nearly positive, at Derby County. Old school values.
Yeah.
Played him regardless, got loads of games under his belt. Steve McLaren came in and probably added a little bit more style and finesse to his game, introduced a bit more of the tactical side of the game, involved his game. So I felt, in terms of his education, apprenticeship as a footballer, was very, very good. Now he's gone to a manager who he's playing a slightly different role, and we spoke about that in depth actually, about the different way he plays at Burnley as an advanced midfielder. doesn't particularly like it, prefers to play as a box-to-box midfielder, and I'm certainly with him on that. I prefer him there.
At one point he said there that he wasn't very fit when he went over. You said you weren't either. Like, was that just you weren't working on conditioning and it was grand? Or?
It's just like you train over here. It's contact hours is a big issue in this country in terms of coaching and looking after yourself. In England, at the age of 14, 15, they're in 4 or 5 times a week. So the diets are in place, the gym exercises, the gym programs they've got in place, they're just there. Go back 20 years, I was getting back after training having 6 slices of toast before I got to bed. You weren't educated in the way you were supposed to be, and in terms of the fitness came organically off being a 14, 15-year-old kid, playing in the schoolyard, playing after school on the streets, playing
Gaelic.
Exactly, playing Gaelic, playing whatever you could in the schoolyard, and then training twice a week obviously wasn't enough. So it did take you time to get up to speed. So I found it quite interesting in terms of there's a couple of similarities.
Good stuff.
But so at ease in terms of
where they are now.
You can see they're really enjoying it, and it obviously helps that it's like a mini Ireland over there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been amazing, because like the two lads would definitely at various stages have been much quieter, and we would never have known that much about who they were, or what their personalities were, or what their backgrounds were. They were like very much. I guess they came into an Ireland team that hadn't been going great, and then it helps that they qualify for a tournament, and then they begin to feel a bit more. Actually, we can tell you a bit more about ourselves.
Yeah. We spoke to John Walters a lot last week. We showed you that about his international future, the fact that he's going to play on and stay on, which is great news. Let's have a little look at what he had to say about his frustrating season at Burnley. Still at Burnley, just watched training. Johnny Walters has joined us in the indoor arena. We're just saying how spoilt young players are today, getting a lovely surface like this. You played your third 23s game on Monday.
Yeah.
How is the injury? How do you feel?
All good. Been trained 6 weeks now, and been a frustrating season, and I ended up having an operation, cartilage trim, and I look back now, I should have had that done at the start of the season, but I didn't for whatever reason, and here I am. So a long frustrating season, but back ready to go now.
You're so used to playing. Like, I was looking at your record, 30, 43, 44 games. It's just like year in, year out, you've been that one to be relied on to play the vast majority of games, haven't you? And so how has that been as you? Have you been able to watch?
I don't like watching games when I'm not playing, to be honest. Little man's mad into football now, so I've been watching a lot with him though, to be fair. No, look, I don't like watching when I'm not involved, but I'll help and do what I can when I'm not involved. And I think the older you get, I think that's more of a role you might become accustomed to. Look, I want to play week in, week out, same as every player, but I know if I'm not, I'll try and help the ones that are playing.
Don't know whether you're watching on Monday night, Peter Crouch nicked your Premier League record at Stoke. Were you aware of that?
I was a little aware of it.
You were a lot
because
aware
it came up, didn't it, on the thing. That doesn't bother me. That I wanted him to score. I put a little tweet out before he even came on. Yeah, that I think he would have got a goal, but that was a good record anyway. I feel for them at the moment. Frustrating watching them.
My take on them is that I've watched his down through the years and played against us obviously a few years before that. They always tried to, in my opinion, replace the likes of you, the likes of Glenn Whelan, and then they always then had to revert back to you, to Glenn Whelan, because they know exactly what they're going to get, and they need players like you in the building, whereas the recruitment for a long time now hasn't been at the level that it's at, and it's probably going to cost them this year.
No, look, we felt like that when it was there. It was every year, but I think that's the case. Look, at a club you do well. You always want to make that next step, so you do well. Someone always comes in to take your place, and you've got to step up to the mark. And that was the case for many years when I was there. There must have been 8 or 9 strikers coming in during the time I was there, even though I played on the right, probably 90% of the games. So you've got to step up to the mark, and that was the case. And at my time, I felt probably wasn't needed as much, and felt like it was time to go at the end of last season. And yeah, say recruitment probably hasn't been right. You look at the players that have come in, big players, big wages spent, and big expectations. But there's always that worry when you step up to the next level. They might be good players, but they're not at those top clubs for a reason, or they've left those top clubs for a reason. They've got the ability, but have they got the attitude? And as you know yourself, it's not about ability most of the time.
Well, we see that here, I think, don't we, in terms of, and that's not being disrespectful.
That's not being disrespectful, not
no.
saying they don't have the ability, but something, that extra little special bit of ability. You see players out there that have it, and sometimes they don't have the attitude to go with it. If they did have the attitude, they would be at a top 4 club in the Premier League, or Barcelona or Real Madrid or one of those teams. So they're there for a reason, and it's no disrespect to the boys here. There's plenty of ability out there, but the attitude's right from all the players. Right. Yeah.
That was John Walters. I think we've covered enough of Burnley, but genuinely, really, really appreciate the time that they took. All of them, the atmosphere. I can't go on and stress it enough how impressed I was. So, really enjoyed the day. Really enjoyed the day.
Delighted Johnny Walters is coming back to play football.
Yeah, I am. And even if it's bit part and
the fact he's shown up. That's
yeah.
great. That's amazing.
Because we haven't got anyone else like him.
No.
Which is big news. Yeah. And there was a real sense of maturity about the way he spoke, and I feel like it's as if he feels that responsibility, and it's just hasn't sat well with him the way it ended with the qualifiers going out like that. He doesn't want to end his Ireland career on that now. So yeah, brilliant. Bit of breaking news. American billionaire Saeed Khan has made an £800 million bid to buy Wembley Stadium. Khan is the owner of both Fulham FC and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Made an offer believed to be nearly 600 million quid up front. So you know a little bit more about American football than me.
He owns the Jaguars for years. They were a really crap team. They were an expansion franchise, and he only got them about 5-6 years ago. And when they started doing games in England, he was the enthusiastic guy who would bring his team over, and everybody in England would go, oh my God, your team is so crap. But then slowly, because in American football, if your team is crap, you get to pick early in the draft, you get all the best young players. And then last season they made the playoffs, and they're actually a really, really good team. They're one piece away from being a potentially championship winning team. Unfortunately, it's the quarterback, which is a kind of important role. But he's still mad keen to move Jacksonville to England. So you would have the Jags playing in Wembley on a Sunday, and you could have Fulham playing in Wembley on a Saturday, and lo and behold, you got one of the most impressive sports businesses in the world. He's worth 8.7 billion, so the 800 million that he's spending on Wembley, it's not quite chump change, but he can afford it.
Let's have a little look at Henry Winter. Wembley lost its aura, poor atmosphere, too corporate and expensive. Issues. FA used some public money in building Wembley. What deal means for Jaguar fans? An NFL deal with Tottenham Hotspur FC. Great for grassroots investments and maybe semis elsewhere. So he's obviously a fan of it. In terms of Wembley as a whole,
yeah, what's it like?
I think barring the absolute big games, it's a bit of a letdown.
Even for Spurs games?
Probably, yeah. Barring the derby against Arsenal, the big games against Chelsea and Man City. Barring those games, it gets lost a little bit. I do think Spurs have done everything they can in that situation to try and generate something.
Yeah,
in terms of a home venue. It is very hard, and they've dealt with it quite well. FA Cup finals will obviously be brilliant. The semis at the weekend I thought were good, but in the main, it has lost it. But how often do we say that about new stadiums? Yeah,
I think that if you had the FA Cup semi-finals at the Emirates or Villa Park or...
I used to like that, did you?
Yeah, it's class. It was really class. It's a proper neutral venue, or even Old Trafford, or I don't know what. It might be interesting to see the Etihad if there was a bit of atmosphere in it. If they could save it, if a knockout cup semi-final could save it. But if it's a load of money up front for the FA, they don't have a great track record of spending that money well.
That's what I mean. It needs to go back in the right places, doesn't it? But whether it will or not.
Yeah.
I can't see them selling it though.
Oh, there'll be we can't sell this. Who is this American Pakistani man? We can't sell to him. But then actually it's completely the right thing to do.
Common sense. Yeah. Right, that's all we got time for today. We've gone well over. Ger, thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Too long-winded on my part.
We shall see you next Thursday. Until then, take it easy.